Yeah, we've had so much good banter, Jay, and like it hasn't. None of it was recorded.
I was about to call you. I was a little worried.
Can Jay not hear us? Is he alive?
Oh, I can hear you. I'm just ignoring you.
Welcome to Drunk Real Estate. Grab a drink and enjoy the show.
Hey there, and welcome to episode 54 of Drunk Real Estate, or Drunk Politics, maybe. I am Kyle Wilson, Ashley Wilson's husband, and I'm joined by the whole gang together. AJ's looking great over there. New background, buddy. What do you got going on?
That's right. My team got a new little background they can pull down and switch it around, so it changes it up a little.
What are the other options you guys? So right now, if you can't see him, he's got a brick wall behind him. I don't know if there's some symbolism to that, but brick wall. What are the other options you have?
They have, I think, ones with like some plants and stuff, but I don't know. They have like 3 or 4. I haven't even seen them all.
You should do the plants, and then it looks like Ernie's hiding in the bush. What are you drinking today?
Diet Coke, fountain, of course, and clear cup today.
Clear cup, nice. Mauricio, how's it going, man?
I'm promoting the show on Instagram. If you guys are not following us all on Instagram, you're losing out. And I'm doing good. I've had zero food today, so this is going to be a fun episode. I've got my new mug. Thanks to.
Are you fasting or something?
No, I just been busy. I've had like I think 1 protein bar or something, but I'm good. I'm just I'm a little bummed. I thought that for some reason we were going to talk about self-storage today, but apparently that's not on the agenda. I was prepared to talk about self-storage. I was ready to go. I was really worked up about it, and then like last minute we did a pivot, and now we're talking politics. Apparently,
what are you drinking today?
I'm back. I really wanted to do the mug. By the way, if you guys want one of these mugs, just drop a comment below if you're on the YouTube channel, and we'll see what we can do. Alto Lo Carmel, do a little pisco action.
I love how Mauricio's offering up mugs that because he knows he has nothing to do with it. It would be all on Jay to figure it out.
First of all, wait. I did not say I was giving out mugs. I said if you're interested in getting one, drop a comment. I'm going to start a little interest list. That's all.
Wait, you drinking the piss and cola again? Is that what I saw?
No, I'm doing the ginger ale, but the Whole Foods version, by the way. Not even I'm doing like the ginger ale and pisco. So yeah, this is some good stuff, man. Especially in this jar. Is it a jar? What is this?
It's a mug.
It's a Stein. I don't know what Stein is shaped. Maybe Stein is short for a name or something.
Beer Stein.
Beer Stein. Steinhorn or something. I don't know. Jay, how's it going over there?
It's going well. I'm exhausted. My kids are visiting grandparents in New York this week, so wife and I have a little staycation at home, and right now,
and you're exhausted. You don't have to say anymore, buddy. I get it. Time away from the kids.
No.
Yeah, I wish that was the reason. I think it's because we stay up late watching TV. But yeah, everything is good, and I'm excited to be back. I had fun last week on the live stream. We got a ton of great feedback on that, so I appreciate everybody that listened, that comment, that reached out, and sounds like people really loved it. So we'll definitely do that again soon. Awesome.
What are you drinking this week?
My wife opened up a bottle last night that she grabbed out of the wine fridge. It's a Malbec / Syrah Les Pépites. I have no idea what it is, but she opened it. It was sitting there.
You know, if Carol's the one selecting the wine,
Well, no, I was just going to make the comment: is Jay ever going to claim a drink? Because every single time when he's drinking something, either his wife picked it, or he just went in the fridge and it was sitting there, or was previously opened, or something like that. He's never just said, "This is my drink. I picked it and I like it." I need that out of you, Jay, next week.
Well, I got some exciting news today. So. Anybody that listens to this podcast knows that Kyle and I drink a lot of clear rum. We're investors in the company, and got an email. Look at that! There you go, clear right there for anybody watching. Got an email today from the from the company, basically saying that they secured a big distribution deal. They're now available in something like 22 states, including Florida. So I can now actually buy clear rum and get it delivered to my house. Previously, I hadn't been able to do that. So that's going to be my drink of choice moving forward.
Hey.
AJ, was it just me? Was it just me, or did that sound like a product placement, like big time?
I agree with that.
There's my pitch for the night.
I mean, he was just excited. He was just telling a story about one of his investments.
No, I mean, it would be product placement if I would have mentioned that it's 0 sugar, 0 carbs, 0 calorie, like amazing stuff. I would have said that would have been
out of celebration. I might have to switch my drink actually today because I was going to go with a bourbon, but I do have the clear nearby. I kind of have a second bar now in my office because I just make these drinks and then I just don't take them back to my bar. So now I have 6 or 7 bottles of stuff just right next to me. So I don't even.
How does that drink? How does the whatever it's called mix with ginger ale? Would that be like a good like a clear ale, Creole Pisco? Like, can we mix it with soda? Yeah.
Oh, for sure. That'd be excellent. I mean, you kind of make me want to go get a ginger ale now.
Kyle, happy belated Canada Day, my friend.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I only got one text about that yesterday, and it was from my parents. So I appreciate you thinking about me today. That was good. I wore the Canada shirt.
I was in Canada last weekend, and there was a lot of Canadians there in Canada, as you can imagine. And so they were all getting ready for the big Canada Day.
Well, he's an American now, so he celebrates July 4th now.
Dual citizen, man, dual citizen. And when it comes down to it, I'm cheering for Canada and everything, except for Summer Olympics. We're not very good at that. All right. No, I want to throw out a public service announcement, by the way, for anybody who's in real estate and likes fantasy football. I'm looking to replace some people. I'm putting some guys on blast from last year, mainly James Daynard. James, you're on blast. Nate Robbins, you're on blast. You're gonna have to prove to me you deserve to be in this league again because last year's showing was awful. And if so, I need some replacements. AJ said he would play, but I think he's not really going to play. It's going to be assistant number 12, who's really good at fantasy football, is going to take care of him. But anybody, drop a comment or DM us or whatever. If you want to play in our fantasy football league, it was great. Nate actually won last year, so it's not that I'm bitter at all that I want to kick him out. So I'm switching up drinks. I guess I'm going to go with the rum today because I don't know. Why is this rum good, Jay? What were you saying about it? It was.
I hear it's zero carb, 0 sugar. So
zero taste.
It's basically alcoholic kale. Get drunk and healthy at the same time.
And Mauricio made a joke about 0 taste that it is not very the rum is very smooth and very clean. So
it's because it's been distilled 17 times.
And there you go. All right, let's move on to this.
Let's get on with it, eh?
So if you didn't listen to my intro and pick up what I was putting down, we are talking a little bit of politics this week because something happened this week. Last week, last Thursday, wasn't there something going on? I don't know. I wasn't around, but oh yeah, there was a debate, and depending on who you were listening to in that debate, the one side is saying that Joe Biden is not fit to lead. The other side is saying that President Trump, all he can do is lie. So let's sift through this a little bit. And I don't know if I want to start with AJ first because AJ, you kind of need to work your way up to AJ. So why don't we start with Jay, who claims he's a centrist, but we'll see. Jay, what did you think of that debate?
Look, I'm old enough to remember when being president of the United States, which is potentially the most powerful position in the world, required a pretty high bar. You had to be respectable. You had to have a high IQ. You had to have a high emotional intelligence. You had to be emotionally stable. You had to be even keeled. You had to be a great negotiator. You had to be empathetic. You had to be willing to compromise. All of these things.
You've never had to be faithful to your wife, though. That's never been.
I never said anything about faithful. But you had to be a lot of things. And I'm old. I remember Dan Quayle back in 1992, basically throwing away his chances at ever being president because he forgot how to spell potato. He put an E on the end of the word potato, and basically they considered him too dumb to be president. Howard Dean ran for president probably late 90s, maybe early 2000s, destroyed his campaign because at some rally he did this weird scream. It came out wrong. And basically people said, that's not presidential, that scream just wasn't presidential. Hell, Al Gore, if you remember Al Gore back in 2000, he basically ruined his election chances because during a debate, he did this big sigh while George Bush was talking. And everybody was like, that was just too rude. Like in the middle of a debate, he let out this big sigh while his opponent was talking. And these are the things that like disqualified you from being president. So we set the bar really high. And I remember when Trump threw his hat in the ring in 2015. And I remember after just a few public appearances thinking there is zero chance this guy is qualified. He doesn't meet that bar. He'd make a mockery of the position of president. No way would I ever vote for him. And I haven't. I'm not a Trump fan for that reason. I mean, he might be a nice guy. He might be a great businessman. I don't think he is, but maybe he is. I don't care. But the reality is, I don't think he meets the bar to be president. And I've held that belief for 9 years. And while I never thought Hillary or Biden were great candidates, it never occurred to me that either of them didn't meet some minimum bar, that they would make a mockery of the position, or they weren't qualified to hold the job. Well, I watched 10 seconds of this debate. And it was pretty clear within the first 10 seconds of this debate that even giving Biden the biggest benefit of the doubt, it's safe to say at this point that he is nowhere near meeting any minimum bar. He is nowhere near being qualified to be president of the United States. Is it 25th Amendment territory where he should be removed from office? Maybe. I mean, certainly that first 10 seconds was pretty damning. Now, second half of the debate, he did better. Next day he came out, he looked better. But we need somebody that's not going to be there 25% of the time or 50% of the time or 75% of the time. We need somebody who can deal with global crises 24/7. And if he can't get it right the first 10 seconds of the debate, if he doesn't look coherent the first 10 seconds of the debate, the man is not qualified to be president. And so as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats, if they don't replace him, it's corrupt. It's basically a power grab. I don't know who is running things right now. And again, maybe it's Biden.
But the problem is, Jay, is who would they replace him with? Like when you look at all the polls, so obviously that's what you're saying has been said a lot since the debate. There's a lot of news channels that are picking up this rhetoric that the DNC is talking about replacing him. The problem is so like all of these news channels, they also ran polls and they took all the most likely candidates, and it doesn't look like any of those most likely candidates would beat Trump according to polls. Like,
that's so fine. So they lose. And I said the same thing about the Republicans in 2016 and 2020. They should replace Trump, and if they don't,
but is it really corrupt though when the DNC is looking at the same thing and looking at those same polls and like saying, okay, yeah, like we could put Kamala in, but she's polling even worse than Biden is, so we're better off leaving him in.
Yeah, but it's not about the poll. I think Jay's point is not about the polls and who is more popular. It's like who can actually effectively do the job. Whether you agree with their position or not, it's like at least one candidate is not suffering some medical issues, which are serious medical issues, and they should not be taken lightly. It's not a question of that. It's like you're just not fit to be in the office. You can agree or disagree and have your opinions of anybody else, including Kamala, but at least she's whatever. She's not having issues.
I think there are other candidates that if I were the guy in charge, that I could see giving Trump a decent run for his money. But again, if they can't win, they can't win. This is the fault of the Democrats, who 4 years ago said to the American people, we're running Biden as a one-term president. His job is to beat Trump and get us to 2024, where we can put in a reasonable candidate who's a reasonable age. And well, they had 4 years to find somebody. They didn't do it. Screw them.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway from it was a little bit of sadness, actually, where like it almost seemed like you almost have to think who's forcing him to do this, because like who would want to be subject to this at his age? Like he obviously he's not having a good time out there, and he's put in his service. I think at this point you should be thanking him for what he's done.
50 years.
Yeah, a lot of years into our country. And he's getting to the point where he's kind of just becoming, the butt of Republican jokes. And like he shouldn't be put in there. Obviously, it's not him just saying, I absolutely have to do this. Like he's being, encouraged to do this. And it's kind of sad to watch, in my opinion.
It is. And I mean, I know people make fun of him for being somebody who's been in government for 50 years. And I know that wasn't the framers' intent, that we had people that were lifetime political I don't want to say appointees, but basically career politicians. But by the same token, I mean, he's for most of that career, it seems like he's done the best job he could. He seems like he's had the American people best interest in mind from his perspective, and I respect that, and I agree. Let him move on, let him retire, live out the rest of his life with his kids and his grandkids, but the folks that are making the decisions right now, they're not in the best interest of the American people, and it's corrupt.
So Jay, if you're taking this position, then what is AJ supposed to say right now? Because I don't know, AJ, like, can't you just like, we beat Medicare, so like, can you just agree that we're in good position?
Amazing position. The position hasn't changed. That's the funniest thing about this. The week prior, the New York Times and 3 other outlets talked about how it was a conspiracy theory that Biden was under cognitive decline. The only thing that changed this week was the Democrats could no longer ignore it and say that it was a conspiracy theory or a lie. Anyone that didn't know until last week that Biden was cognitive decline was so horrendous that he didn't know where he was half the time.
It was pretty evident mid 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, I don't understand. Like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, what are you talking about? We see the guy walking in circles. He has handlers everywhere. He can't speak. This is nothing new. This is like, it's weird that all of a sudden now they're like, we're shocked. And it's like, what are you talking about? You've literally been gaslighting the country for 3 years, saying how this guy's as sharp as ever, and we won't put him in front of audiences. And when we do, he can't say things right. And he doesn't know where he's at. He calls people by the wrong names. He reads teleprompters and says, pause, end, look at audience, things like that, because he doesn't know what to say. And he can't talk unless he's reading a teleprompter. So it's weird to me that all of a sudden this is like, we're acting like it's a surprise. The guy was senile and has been for a long time. And so I think all that really happened was this is just the left got on board with now, and they decided that it's okay for it not to be a conspiracy theory. That's the only thing that happened. Nothing else changed. Nothing else said. So why would they change anything? They were totally okay with him being senile prior. And that didn't affect them. They got to do whatever they wanted.
Well, the position that's tough now, if you're a Democrat or even, you know, an independent who leans Democrat, typically is you kind of have to weigh the, you know, senile might be a harsh word. He has senior moments, and he's old, but you're having to weigh someone who is old, has senior moments, isn't you know, is a shell of the person he was even when he was vice president. If you go back and watch some of like him vice president, like he was sharp, like quick comebacks, quick, you know, he was great. And that's just not the Joe Biden we have. So now you're having to weigh, but basically, you know, the whole what the Democrats say is that we're putting him against a guy who doesn't have a moral compass. So like, would you rather someone who has a moral compass with, you know, who isn't all there, or, you know, somebody who is all there? He still seemed pretty sharp. He was, you know, he wasn't fumbling words. You know, he did a, you know, as good a job that he can do. And like, but that's your alternative right now. So that's kind of the position that everyone's in. So
I disagree. I don't think that Biden's the alternative. Whoever is making the decisions behind the scenes is the alternative. And we don't know who that person is or who those people are. And that's the problem that I have.
Or should we be weighing him against Kamala? Like, do we think this is going to be a year from now? It's just going to be like, okay, enough's enough, and he's going to be gone, and we're going to have Kamala if Biden wins.
I think that it's unlikely. Well, I think it's less likely he's going to win than it was 2 weeks ago. But the question is, are the Democrats going to recognize that in time and actually do the right thing? Even if it means
what I've been calling for. I thought this was the whole plan the whole entire time. They were going to wait for primaries, everything. And then they were going to play a switcheroo on it. That's been my stance all the time, because there's no way he can beat Trump. I mean, go think about him in 2 more debates. Think about him in actual, like, out and about, like really actually being out there. the guy they did everything they could to make this work for him. They did it hours early so it wouldn't be his bedtime. I mean, they set this thing up. They trained him. They gave him the questions beforehand. He had the questions prior, and he still talked like that.
Oh, I love AJ spouting a little bit of conspiracy theories there, but
how is it conspiracy theories?
Well,
they literally said
it. That they moved it up just because the hits of his bedtime. That they gave him the questions beforehand. Like that was, they did not give him the questions beforehand.
They gave him and Trump. Both of them.
The questions were not given beforehand.
Hey, here's a good conspiracy. Here's the conspiracy theory I thought you were talking about, which I've heard a lot about, is that they actually moved up, not the time of the debate, they moved up the whole debate early in the season. This is, I think, the earliest debate they've ever done. I mean, we're only in July, June, right?
Yeah,
so the conspiracy theory is they purposefully moved up the debate till June because they knew he was going to have a terrible performance, and then we could have time between now and the convention to actually make a switch. But I really wanted to plug the episode I don't know what the episode maybe we'll drop it down in the comments or in the description, but we did an episode on our predictions on whether it was going to be Biden versus Trump. This was early on in our podcast, and I know I remember saying there's no way Biden. I remember my prediction was there's no way Biden's going to do it. I thought Gavin Newsom would be stepping up and being the Democrat, and I thought Trump was not going to be the Republican. I thought he was going to be in jail or somewhere, which we're getting close. But I think I had Ron DeSantis at that point, so I thought it was going to be Gavin Newsom.
Not after this weekend's ruling.
I know, not anymore for sure. But it was interesting that we talked about this literally probably a year ago, and we made our predictions of who. And I think a lot of us didn't think that Biden was going to make it. And it looks like the Democrats, again, it's conspiracy theories, that they actually knew this was coming and just kind of set the stage.
But here's the thing: is it really a conspiracy theory? So politics is a game to a large extent. And so I'll take the position that if I believe something, it's not a conspiracy theory, because I'm very anti-conspiracy theory. I think it was pretty obvious that the reason they did a June debate, and remember, Biden's team was the one that recommended or made the challenge of the debate and threw out the date. I thought it was pretty obvious that the reason they picked a June date was because that would give them another month and a half before the convention if they needed to swap them out. Secondly, if he had an average debate, it would give him 5 months before the actual election for people to forget about it. And if he had a great debate, well, now suddenly he's pumped up in the polls. So there was really no real downside for the Democrats, assuming that if what happened, they actually used it as an opportunity. And I see no issue at this point replacing him. Like, is it sad that they didn't do this a year ago? Absolutely. And like I said, we were told he was going to be a one-term president and get us to 2024. So I think it was disingenuous, but I don't see a big deal with replacing him right now. I like from an opposite.
But you keep saying replace him. Like you can't replace him.
Well, it's up to him.
Right. Exactly. You can't replace him. Basically, almost the only path is for him to give up the delegates that have already pledged to him. That's like the only path. The only other path, if you want to replace him, you basically have to 25th Amendment him like right now, which that's, that would, a lot of people would be happy with that, because then we would get our first woman president and she could ride off into the sunset with her 4 months and everyone would be happy. But I want to shift this because this isn't the shit on President Biden debate. So we have to shift it a little bit so we could talk about Trump a little bit, and we got to talk about maybe I have some gripes with the debate format as well, but I'll bring it back to AJ, since I started with Jay last time with the Biden. AJ, how did you think Trump did in his debate?
Trump was Trump. In fact, I was actually shocked by it. I completely was like, it was way less entertaining than I was hoping for. So I was a little disappointed. He kept way more in line, which wasn't fun. And outside that, he was Trump. I don't know what there was to expect. It was Trump.
Yeah, I mean, we got what we expected. We got the lies, in the gross exaggerations. Everything's the worst or the best, or the embarrassment or whatever. But as he said,
did you see CNN went through all of Biden's lies? Right after the next day, CNN did a whole thing on all the lies that Biden told.
Yes, when I look at these lies thing, I feel like lies are a strong word a lot of times with a lot of these, because if you look at a lot of them, they're exaggerations, right? That's what a lot of Trump stuff are, exaggerations, and the lies that, the Biden, like a lot of people were talking about, though, that the billionaires only pay 8%. That's a lie. Well, it's not a lie, but what they do is they include whatever the word is,
Realized?
stocks that haven't been sold.
Unrealized.
That's right. Unrealized gains on stocks. I'm already drunk, I guess. Into their calculation. So like, it's all like, we've kind of known politics are always like that. We know that politicians lie. It's just that, Trump does it a little bit more and a little bit more exaggerated than most people. So but as you said, we expected that. And like, it wasn't a lot of name calling, other than the golf episode, which I thought was great. That was my favorite part of the entire, like, I literally laughed out loud when that happened. It kept me entertained. I thought he did kind of what he needed to do.
Yeah. It was not anything special. He was Trump. It was, I think, probably more disappointing than anything, just because it wasn't as fun.
And you can't, and I get more mad at the debate format for allowing him to pull some of the stunts that he did, because they did that format where they intro a topic, you get 2 minutes, and then you basically get like 2 rebuttals, and they're each 1 minute. And so the problem is that they would move on to a topic when it was obvious that we shouldn't be moving on. And so the candidate at the time, mainly Trump most of the time, would just go back to the previous topic. He would just be like, I wasn't done. I'm going to keep talking about that last topic. And so they'd be like, no, well, the question was this. And he's like, I'm still not done. He would just go back to the other topic. So I blame that a lot on the format, but it's a smart move on his point. Like, when they pushed him on some of the January 6th stuff, like, obviously he's not going to want to talk a lot about that. So he would just deflect and go back to a previous point.
Yeah. The format was terrible for that.
I just thought it was interesting. Like, I did not, to be clear, I did not watch the debate, which probably puts me in the same category as 99% of the people out there. Most people do not watch the actual event. They watch the reaction to the event. And I think that's important, because how the reaction happens will frame a lot of the ways people think about it. I just thought it was fascinating that when I started reading, because I was out and, I was celebrating. I wasn't celebrating Canada Day, but I was in Canada. I was doing my thing. I didn't get to watch the debate. So I started just watching some of the clips and the news articles following it. And I just thought it was fascinating that the whole focus on the debate was, hey, should you resign and step down versus continuing, versus, hey, you did a good job or bad job, or who won the debate. It wasn't like who won the debate. It was like, should you step down? That's not a good narrative that you want to have post debate. Whether that was true or not, I don't know. I've seen clips of it. I haven't seen too many clips of Trump. They all seem to be like the clips from Biden, but that's what everybody else saw. Nobody else was watching the debate. Nobody else really cares. Like most people will watch the whole thing. Maybe you watched the first couple minutes and got bored. So everybody's going to watch the snippets, but to watch the way the news media has been, analyzing it. And I thought that was very interesting, but I also thought it was very interesting, the fact that, to your point, AJ, people seemed, I don't know if it was shocked is the right answer, but I definitely thought it was interesting that some of the MSNBCs, the CNNs even, were talking about the whole thing. But it just reminded me of how dangerous it is to be in your echo chamber. Like, people tend to, like, those that watch MSNBC or Fox, either one, they tend to just watch that. That's their whole way of getting news. And so whether you're super left, super right, or maybe you're a CNNer and all you do is get your news from CNN, and it just becomes an echo chamber. Because to AJ's point, those of us who, like, I like to look at a lot of stuff. I mean, this is nothing new. I mean, we've seen this stuff forever. And I was like, this is like, yeah, what did you expect? We've been seeing this for months, if not years. But it sounded like genuinely some people were shocked. And I'm like, how can you be shocked if you've been watching all of the other stuff? And it's because you've just been watching the echo chamber or whatever you may want. And again, it's both sides. I'm not saying it's one side or the other, because a lot of people watch the other side of it and they get the echo chamber and they think it's all conspiracies and everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket, and Russia's, and, Russia has, tanks and missiles, and we're going to invade Florida pretty soon. I was in Florida, Jay, and we had all those submarines or whatever, those Russian submarines, or in Cuba, and it sounded like, oh my God, we're going to get invaded by the Russians. But just, that's why I encourage everyone to sort of watch. I love to watch all of it. I watch MSNBC or CNBC, also Fox, so I can get everybody's perspective on it. I think that's super helpful. Then you don't get surprised when suddenly Biden seems like he's got some medical issues, and I don't know if it's dementia or if he's just old, whatever it is. It's not new. It's not something that just happened in the last couple of weeks or the last month decline. It's been going on for 2 or 3 years. Everybody's been talking about it. Everybody that I've seen in this side of the world you just, just be a little bit more open-minded and watch all of the coverage, or that beautiful, AJ, you were a big fan of that news site that basically gives you both sides of the stories and kind of ranks
all sides.
Yeah,
Yep,
all sides that ranks the,
Mhm.
the bias of the
Yep.
news, and just something like that where
Great
you can get
site.
all perspectives.
Yep.
Well, I want to move this on a little bit, and I want to set aside. So I know it's really tough because it's the major headlines, but I want to set aside that Biden's old and that Trump's a liar. So let's set aside those things, and let's talk about some of the actual issues and positions that obviously the parties have. So, I don't think we need to touch on abortion. It was pretty evident what each position was on the abortion, that Trump believed that the states should be in charge of it, which is what they are now, and that Biden believed that it was an atrocity what happened. So they're pretty strong opinions, but at the same time, with the way the Supreme Court is right now, even if we did elect Biden, I don't think there's anything he can do about it. So I don't think it's really worth discussing. But some of the other big issue that was brought up that Trump really tried to hammer in.
Real estate.
Well, so it is real estate related. There's a couple I'm going to try and bring it back, as immigration, right? So immigration was a big topic, and Trump basically has come out and said he wants to kick out. He hasn't denied, but they've tried to say all illegal immigrants, wants to kick them all out and close up the border. We've discussed this and Biden has pretty much the exact opposite. He thinks that means we are inhumane by doing that. So we've discussed this on previous episodes where we have a 1.7% birth rate, which isn't enough to even sustain our population. We need immigration. So Jay, I know you were itching to talk last topic when I cut you off to move this on. So I'll give you the floor first about immigration, whether you think this is going to be move the needle at all, either way, depending on who gets elected.
Zero chance that Trump does mass deportations, because he'll be forced to realize that it will absolutely destroy the economy like nothing has ever destroyed the economy in this country. And we all know it's all about the economy, and it's a good talking point leading up to the election. He didn't do mass deportations last time around for the same reason. It actually came out last time around that he had a bunch of illegal workers working at a bunch of his businesses. And in Florida, I mean, we got crushed in Florida when we started passing laws that required employers to verify visas of workers in their businesses. So especially a lot of the agriculture around here, and that spiked agriculture prices in Florida when all of these illegal workers started moving to Alabama and Georgia and all the other states to take jobs when they started passing regulation. And I think it's not that I think, I'm fairly certain, I'm quite certain that if we had anything that even looked like mass deportations, we would literally sink this economy.
Even on the recent stuff, look, I think we need immigration, illegal or otherwise, for some of the stuff. But even the latest, because obviously we've seen a huge spike over the last 12 to 18 months, right? That's a whole new thing, and that's creating some really acute problems right now, especially with the busing out. Like even in New York, people are like, oh, immigration's great, and then suddenly everybody's getting busted in New York, and suddenly we don't have a place to house them or what to do with them. Do you see a scenario where we say, okay, well,
they're staying in luxury hotels right now, Mauricio? Luxury hotels.
Do you see a scenario where you say, well, we're not going to deport it's not going to be mass deportation, but anybody who's been in here since the last, I don't know if you know how to keep track of that, but the last 18 months during this, because there's clearly been a new wave of, like, just if you look at a graph, it's not even close. Like you have whatever the illegal immigration increase in the United States, and you look at the last 12 to 18 months, it's just been a spike. It's like almost look like M2. It's like the M2 money supply. It's like all the money printing is going up, that parabolic. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same with that. So I don't know if you can identify those specific folks, but that's causing acute problems. There's an issue between we need immigration, especially here in California. There are jobs here that most people don't want to do, and we usually import, quote unquote import. We bring in workers from Mexico to specifically do the farming that we need people to do, because Americans don't want to do that kind of work. But lately, in the last, what's the number, AJ? 1 million, 1.5 million per
almost
whatever?
50 million people in 2021. I think it's 46 million people.
Yeah. I mean, the latest one, I don't know if you can keep track of that.
If they're not criminals and they're paying taxes, why wouldn't we want them here?
How do you know that if they just run across the border? To say that we need to have border control, every single country in the world does that. Go to Europe. That is crazy to try to become a citizen. It's almost next to impossible in most of those countries. To say that we need border control, of course, we need immigrants. Everybody agrees with that.
Well, it's the same here. It's stupid hard to become a legal citizen here as well. I had to go through it. It took me 6 years, and like I literally knocked up an American with 2 kids and married her, and like that's like the easiest path you're supposed to have, and like I still had problems.
No, absolutely. But to say then, so the answer is to not have, come on, we need some kind of immigration and border control. Every country needs it. We don't need to have 50 million people that nobody knows where any of these people are coming from crossing over to the borders and then just say, just stay here, because then there's no incentive. They have to get control. We want immigrants to come, always have. America always will. They need to have a way to process people. They need to cut the red tape. So it needs to be overhauled and need to be changed. But to just say that we'll just let 50 million people run across the border and that's inhumane if we don't allow them, that is so ridiculous. That is no country's success stands.
Well, but at the same time, so even if you're Trump, though, if you're just like, we got to close the border, like, I feel like you can't just stop talking after that. Like, you have to recognize that you can't just close the border. You need to fix other things as well. And we, Jay and I, we listened to another podcast that they actually interviewed Trump, and he did mention, it was a tech podcast, and that he did mention that he would be open to allowing H-1Bs to get green cards. So basically, anybody who comes over to the U.S. and gets a degree from a U.S. school, they would have, he kind of walked back the automatic green cards, because that would, because then you're leading to fraud about like people just getting sham degrees from University of Phoenix to get green cards. But at the same time, at least he's open to it. But I also thought that like him just saying, "Oh yeah, I'm open to that," like he should have thought of that by now. Like if you're vying to be president and you're saying, "Oh, like immigration is one of these big topics," like you should have a more baked plan than just like, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea."
It's both sides. I mean, the problem is immigration is not something you can say in 5 minutes how we're going to fix. That doesn't work like that. So you look at both sides of the debate. To say that we have to control the border is now racist. That is so stupid. It's wild. So yes, we do. We need to allow people to get in. We need the right people to come in. We want to incentivize the right people. Every country does that. They have incentives. That's all great. And yes, it needs to be overhauled. We need people. We need good people. We want them, but it has to be controlled. You can't say we're going to figure out a way to control it, but until then, just everybody come in. So I agree, but both candidates here, this isn't a Trump versus Biden thing. You have one that says don't do anything, and the other one that says, close the border down.
Yeah. And the issue is that we just, unfortunately, not unfortunately, it's just mathematically, but we just can't afford it. Like at the end of the day, everybody forgets that these are costs involved. So Jay, you mentioned, hey, as long as they're paying taxes, why not? I'm like, cool. If they're paying $1,000 in taxes, but it's costing us $40,000 to house you, well, we're in a $39,000 deficit, and that's cool. Except when you have 15 million.
Or if they go to prison in mass, then it was 311,000.
No, I'm not saying they're going to prison. I'm just saying there's a cost. Unless they're coming and they're actually producing and adding value, then it's like from an economic standpoint, that is costing you money. It's costing you money, and we just can't afford. We're broke. We don't have
that was my implication. That was my implication when I said they were paying taxes. I wasn't just setting the bar with if they pay $1 in taxes. My point was
which means that they have to be citizens so they can get all the taxes applied.
They produce more than they consume. They produce more than they consume, and therefore they pay taxes because they're being a productive member of society. 100%. All of them. Bring them all in. Bring them all in.
Exactly. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point. We've got two sides here that take extreme positions on these issues. And that's why I know, Kyle, you want to talk about a couple of these issues, but the issues are meaningless as far as I'm concerned, because the sides take, at least leading up to the election, they take extreme views. It used to be, and again, I'm going to go back to, I'm old enough to remember, it used to be that candidates would actually put together a platform and a plan. This is what I'm going to do if I get into office. And it's not a one sentence, we're going to deport them all, or one sentence, we're going to let them all in. It was actually, here's a 50-page plan on the legislation that I'm going to propose that's actually going to solve this problem. Here's the economic impact it's going to have. Here's the social impact it's going to have. Here's the employment impact it's going to have. And we can actually have a discussion about it, as opposed to like this cage match of deport them all, let them all in, let's fight to the death.
But they didn't do that. So,
all right, well, let's move on to something that so Jay's upset.
Wait. Before you move on, I would encourage, and again, I wish we need to have the episodes here, but we had a whole episode on the real estate impact of immigration. I would highly encourage folks to Google that and look at that, because there is an economic and a real estate impact on folks coming in, on real estate prices and real estate in general. I would encourage people to go check that episode out.
Immigration is also the second issue in America right now. Only second to the economy. Immigration is the next issue for voters right now. It's a big deal.
Well, but Jay's right, is that it needs to be somewhere in the middle. Both sides are a little bit lopsided on there. Neither solution is great. So I'm going to give Jay a topic that hopefully he can't argue with.
But before we do that, and I know you want to move on, but real quick, can we go around the horn and make our predictions on what the Democrats are going to do?
Well, no, that's at the end. We'll do that to wrap up the segment, Jay. We're in the midst of the segment. Come on, this is why you're not allowed to be moderator.
Moving on to the next segment.
No, we're not moving on to the next segment. Next question.
Wait. There's a reason we have a professional running the show, a professional moderating, years and years, decades of experience, and that why you're not that person.
So no, I'm gonna hit back at Jay. He wants a real topic that we could discuss, that both sides aren't wishy-washy on. And so I'll give you one: tariffs. So they asked Trump about his tariffs. He plans on implementing what he said, blanket tariffs across the board to all countries coming in. And so they asked him about, okay, what do you think the effects of that going to be? A lot of people believe that's going to lead to higher inflation. And he kind of dodged the question. He just said tariffs are a great thing. So Jay, if that leads me to believe that if Trump wins, we're going to see tariffs. If Biden wins, he hasn't brought up tariffs at all. So do you think that's going to be impacting our economy?
No, just like I don't believe if Trump wins, he's going to deport everybody, because it would destroy this economy. If you implement tariffs, all you're doing is
he did it once. I mean, he didn't do blanket tariffs, but he implemented tariffs once.
He did. And you remember that whole thing started with him saying trade wars are easy to win. And then he implemented a bunch of tariffs on China. China raised the prices of all their goods and started restricting the goods coming into this country. And everybody screamed, hey, Donald, I thought trade wars were easy to win. And he kind of moved on to the next topic. Tariffs didn't work last administration.
Then why is he even bringing it up?
They're also inflationary.
Because most people have no idea what he means when he says tariffs. Basically, what he says is, they don't understand how that actually works. It's easy to say. It's like saying, I'm going to get Mexico to pay for the wall. That sounds great. Let's get Mexico to pay for the wall. Let's implement tariffs so that China pays all of our taxes and China absorbs all of our costs. And we all win. We all make tons of money. In fact, let's get Russia to pay for our nuclear weapons. Let's get Mexico to pay for all of our food. Let's get Poland to pay for all of our whatever. It's great to say you're going to get other countries to pay for stuff, but the reality is that's not the way it works. And if you implement tariffs, all other countries are going to do is say, okay, you're costing me an extra $3 to make this widget. I'm going to charge $3 more for this widget.
All right, well, let's move on to Mauricio and AJ, who are actually going to answer the question. I feel like I'm a CNN debate moderator where you're just like dodging the question. I don't have to answer this because it's never going to happen.
I just answered it. He's not going to do it.
That wasn't the question. The question said, what would be the effects if Trump got in and raised tariffs versus Biden doesn't implement tariffs?
It would destroy the economy, inflation. Every dollar that we charge in tariffs to other countries would get added to product costs.
What about just a mini tariff? Just a little guy.
I think the connection that most people miss is that when you say tariffs, you should just replace that with we are taxing the American people, because that's what it is, right? When you say I'm going to impose, like, here's a great example. I remember, this is way back when, but I remember there was somebody overseas. I think he was from Asia somewhere. He came over when I was working at the law firm, and I drove him around, and I happened to have my Mercedes back then. And he was telling me how expensive Mercedes were in his country, whatever, I forget the country was in, because the tariffs were so high. And so instead of you being able to buy a car back, whatever the car is, instead of spending $30,000 on a car, now you're going to have to spend $50,000 on a car because there's tariffs involved. So that's essentially a tax that you're paying on top of the car. The car should have been 30. They're going to give you a 20% tax. And now you're going to pay $50,000 on that car. That's what a tariff is. It's just a tax on you in order to make it more difficult.
Well, let me give you the other side of the argument, though, is basically that the only reason we have to import all this stuff is because other countries make it so cheap. And by implementing tariffs, that allows us to make more things onshore. It boosts our economy because we're making more of this stuff that we weren't making before. And that's a boon to the economy.
Yeah, but that messes with my free trade. If I want to buy a Mercedes-Benz, why should I have to pay more for my Mercedes-Benz and be forced to compete with like a Toyota?
Because it's not American. Go buy a Ford, Mauricio.
Yeah. I got to buy a Ford, but if the Ford isn't as the same quality as whatever I want to buy, like why am I forcing to pay more for the superior product? In my belief, that's a superior product. I got to pay more. I got to pay the same price as some shitty product here in the U.S. Like I want my free market to give me the choice and reward somebody who's making a better product. I want to be able to buy that and not be forced to have to not make that decision because of some artificial tariff on there.
Well, Mauricio, it's cheaper to go live in Costa Rica. Why don't you just go do that if all you care about is cheap?
The problem is it's not even. That works if it was even. The problem with tariffs is it is not. Other countries impose tariffs on us and we don't impose on them. And that is one of the fundamental problems. We act like it's an even for even. It's not. It's skewed. And it does actually work. And you look at it, puts a disadvantage. I believe in matching tariffs. Absolutely. If we're going to do that, match. I don't think we should just tariff people to try to replace taxes or anything else like that. I want there to be open trade across countries. I want us to be doing that. I think that's better for the consumers, everyone involved. What I don't agree with, though, is that we don't tariff other countries for political reasons, or we think it's bad, or we're too afraid to vet cost. And then in the other way around, though, we are getting tariffed and we can't do business with them. So I agree 100%. There's like tariffs. Let's get goods and services. Let's swap. Let's trade. We are a net importer, though, of so much. Lots of times we can't export, and we can't do it because we're not cost efficient, of course. But there's also an imbalance in the tariffs across countries, and that it's so skewed with how America pays for things versus other countries, including China. And I think that was actually one of the good things, even though I don't agree with jacking up and doing mass tariffs or anything else. But when Trump said, I'm going to create a more even playing field and actually went after some of those countries, I was all about that.
Well, in the American government already solved some of that other ways too. Like there's a reason we don't have to import beef or milk or other crops from other countries because the government subsidizes it. Like they already provide subsidies for American farmers and American other fields that they decide.
So then we're paying for it. That's another tax. All you're doing is taxing us more. So what we're doing is we're saying we're not going to play mean with China. So instead, we're going to tax our people more to subsidize our stuff so we can be competitive because we're getting tariffs over there. That's a horrible thing, and that's got to end. I love what we did with the America.
Well, but if the net result though is that we bring more products onshore, we're less reliant on places like China. I guess the question is, does the ends justify the means to getting to there? Like we saw what happened with basically the chips. The whole thing's in Taiwan, and there was a shortage of chips, and it like crippled the tech industry for 6 months there. And then the government was all of a sudden like, oh, we got to figure this shit out, and they did this whole Chips Act. And like,
yeah, but that's not tariffs and shipping back and forth. They weren't tariffing our chips. They were subsidizing plants.
No. I'm not saying they were. I'm just saying our reliance on other countries to get cheap things.
I agree with that. I agree. I do agree with that, Kyle. Absolutely. I think that there's incentives other than pure costs are good that we should take into account for those reasons. But I do believe in even the playing field. That's all I mean with tariffs. I think the United States is in a position where we're abused in international trade way more, and especially with the advantage that we give internationally. And I think that has become skewed.
Yeah, but just to push back a little bit on that, AJ, just to push back a little bit on that, and I get what you're saying in terms of the evening the playing field, but it's not even in terms of how you distribute that, because when we impose tariffs on other people, then it affects the whole entire population. The entire population is taxed. Versus when it's reversed, it's just helping whatever that particular industry or that particular company is getting the benefit. And yes, they have jobs and they create a lot of jobs. So from that perspective, it makes sense. But when we impose tariffs on other countries, it affects every single man, woman, and child in the United States. When the other countries impose tariffs, it's only affecting a particular, usually an industry, not a company. But it might be the airline industry, or it might be soybeans, it might be whatever. But it doesn't affect everybody. So it's a tough one, because again, I want the freedom to be able to pick whatever. If I think a foreign vehicle is better than a US vehicle, I want to have the option, or a computer or an electronic or whatever. I don't want to be limited in my choice because of this artificial tariffs going around.
I do too. I just think trade should be a lot more fair than it is today. It's so skewed.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think this is part of my problem with both of these candidates and both of these administrations that we've seen over the last 8 years. I talked earlier about all the qualities that we need for the president of the United States to have. I missed one that's really important. That's diplomacy. And we have one candidate, Trump, who is really good at diplomacy with our enemies, not with our allies. And we have another candidate, Biden, who's really good with diplomacy with our allies and can't do it with our enemies. And we need.
How is Trump bad with our allies? He renegotiated great trade with Europe, and the cost, what he made to do.
Yeah, but I guess what Jay's saying is they hated him.
Yeah, because he makes them actually pay, but they all did it.
But they didn't respect him, but it makes a big difference, because who knows what's going on behind the scenes that he wasn't involved in, because they didn't feel like they could trust him to pull him in. Like, who knows what's going on the world stage? We need to be the leader. We need to be at the center.
So we shouldn't hold their feet to the fire.
He wasn't going out to dinner with the Swiss government in Davos.
No, you can do that, but you can also do it with diplomacy. And there's the carrot and there's the stick. And Trump only knows the stick, and Biden only knows the carrot. And we need a president that can do both. We need somebody that can.
Well, what do we need more now? Because Trump comes out during the debate and he says, I will have the war in Ukraine and the war with Israel and Palestine. I will have that solved before I even get in office.
So why hasn't he done it already? So prove that he's that good. Do it yesterday. Do it today. Do it tomorrow.
Because he has no power to do it right now.
He has no power to.
If he's elected, he's saying as president-elect, I'll be able to go and I'll.
What power does he have as president-elect?
Saying that I'll be able to sign this in 3 months.
But no, so I completely actually agree with this one. The idea that Trump is going to be worse for political relations, this is where I get lost. Everybody's like, it's going to be World War III. So wait, we were in complete peacetime.
Well, Trump said it would be World War II.
World War II. Great. Biden said it'll be.
Biden doesn't remember either.
Biden doesn't know which war we're at.
Yeah, Biden's like, we're in World War II still. So like when you look at it, we had total peace with Trump. Russia, all that. We did not have these problems. Then Biden says we're going to have a world at war if Trump gets in. Do you want that? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Since World War II, the world has never been in this much danger. Europe's at war for the first time. So I actually agree when I look at it. I think people are way more afraid of Trump. And I think Trump will broker deals. The reason why is because he can get people to shut up because they actually believe when he's going to nuke them. Biden, they don't. Biden gets in and nobody cares. They're going to walk all over him just like they have. And I don't believe that because of what they say. I believe that because of what's actually happened. And so,
he'll probably just do it because he likes winning negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because it's an ego thing. It's all ego. He just wants to do it to push people around. Who cares?
All right. So I think I did plan on bringing up the whole war thing. So I'm glad we touched on it a little bit. And we're getting a little long in this discussion. So I'll bring it back to Jay. Jay, you want to poll the room?
Yeah. I'm curious what everybody thinks is the Democrats are going to do. I mean, we had a predictions episode last week. Obviously, we didn't predict what was going to happen at the debate, but had we predicted what was going to happen at the debate, I think we would have made a slightly different predictions on what's likely to happen in November. So,
well, except for you, because you refused to answer the question until after the debate. So now, floor is yours. The debate has happened. Who do you think our candidate's going to be?
Okay. Okay. My prediction, and it's kind of out there, but I'm going to go with it. I think that Democrats are going to decide that Biden needs to go, and they're going to convince him to step down. Kamala is going to be pissed, rightfully so, but they will negotiate a deal with her that either Biden steps down before the election and she becomes the first female Black president for a few months, which is a great resume builder.
I don't think you have to specify Black. She'll just be the first female president.
Or she'll be the first Black president. Well, I guess that's
yeah,
not true. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. We already had a Black one, Jay.
That's fair. Can I say I don't see color and them?
That's right. He's colorblind. He didn't know.
I'm colorblind. Exactly. I'm penis blind. I don't see penises or vaginas.
This is like RoboCop. Or, no, not RoboCop. What's the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? Girls have boys have penis.
Terminator.
Terminator. Oh, so good.
So they'll either give her that or they'll offer her like the attorney general position in the next administration. They'll do something to appease her to be willing to accept that she is not going to be the nominee, and then they're going to go with somebody else. And I think the top two choices are either Gavin Newsom or, and I know everybody's going to hate this, but I think the Democrats are going to realize this might be the best choice. They may go with Hillary Clinton again. She's literally the only. So here's the problem.
I agree 100%, and I think it's crazy because those are my two picks too, Jay. I think Gavin Newsom or Hillary Clinton. They're going to go back to it.
No Michelle Obama. No votes for Michelle Obama.
Here's the problem. The Democrats have an issue where with only 4 or 5 months to the election, they need somebody who's vetted, because otherwise we're going to spend the next 4 months publicly vetting these candidates and having all of their skeletons out of the closet. Hillary Clinton's been vetted. And so she's literally the only candidate they can put in there that for 4 months, they won't talk about all the things we didn't know about Hillary Clinton. We know everything, whether we like it or not, we know it. And that won't be the topic of discussion. I think
Trump
also
won't mind. He already has a bunch of nicknames for her, and he's already got all the ammo he needs.
Absolutely. By the same token, it's at this point that it's none of it's going to be fresh. He's going to need new material. So we all win.
I don't know. I think it's been long enough. We could use the same one. Mauricio, you agree with him? We're going to see Biden and Trump, or who do you think Biden's replacement's going to be if you don't agree?
Are we assuming that Biden's going to be replaced? Is that
no, I'm leaving it to you. I'm just saying, if you don't think Biden is going to be the candidate, who do you think it is?
No, I am going back and sticking to my original prediction from 25 years ago, which is Biden will not. I don't think he needs to step down. That part I don't agree with. I think he just runs out of his term. I don't think. I mean, I don't think you need to step down and have somebody else be president. I don't think you need any of that. You just need to be like, hey, I've decided not to renew my candidacy and I will not be running for president in 2024, 2025, or what, 2024, sorry. They don't need to step down. There's no reason for that. So I say he just announces that, hey, for whatever reason, for family and whatever, I'm just going to not run again. And so we need a new candidate. And that candidate, I do agree. I thought, Jay, you were going to come up with a random name. It has to be a high profile name. So I hadn't thought about Hillary. Totally could be Hillary, although she's got a lot of, landmine. Kamala, I mean, vetted. Nobody knows who she is. She's like failed her way to the top. I mean, I don't know if Kamala hasn't been vetted.
Yeah, but she's got like the lowest approval rating of like any vice president, though. It's like,
yeah, I don't know about Kamala. I'm going to stick with though he also has I'm from California. He's a bunch of issues here in California, and he doesn't have a great record and all that stuff. But I just think from the name recognition, the charisma, he's presidential, all that kind of charisma stuff, looks the part. I'm going to stick with Gavin Newsom for sure, but I do think it's going to have to be a big name, and Michelle Obama is a big name. I don't think for other so Hillary's an interesting choice. I'm not saying Hillary's out of the question. I hadn't thought of that, and that's totally within the realm of possibility. She's got the experience, all that great stuff. I'm going to stick with Gavin, my buddy Gavin. But I don't think first of all, who cares about Kamala? I don't think they're worried about her. I don't think Biden needs to step down. I think he just needs to announce, hey, after further consideration with my family and I'm old, I got issues, I want to spend time with my family. I'm not gonna run for election. I'm gonna run through, January, and then I'm gonna hand it over.
Right enough. And for the record, I said Michelle Obama. She already came out and said she wasn't going to do it, but things could change. AJ, you agree with these guys?
Yeah, I'm sticking with my switcheroo, Gavin Newsom. That's what I've thought and said forever. I don't think Biden's going to go through with it. If he does, I'm first to say I'll be shocked. So I still think absolutely Gavin Newsom, and I agree though with Jay. Hillary Clinton was my second one right there too, because of all those reasons. There's no reintroduction, period. And so they would be betting that people just, it would be stupid, but they, leave it up to them. They get a second shot and then they screw us all with another horrible candidate.
My only pushback on that, I haven't really thought about it, but the fact that she's already gone up against the exact same opponent and lost, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. But politicians aren't that smart. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess that's the problem. They don't have a lot of options to replace them.
Well, yeah. How do you know a politician's lying?
Let's be clear. There's nobody out there that's deciding between Trump and Hillary or Trump and Gavin. There's nobody out there that's undecided, even if a few people say they are. At the end of the day, it's really which one can get more people to show up to the polls. And I think there are a lot of people who regret not showing up on the Democrat side. I think there are a lot of people who regret not showing up for Hillary back in 2016, and so I think she could probably get a lot of votes.
That's a good argument. That would be my strategy. That would be my entire strategy. I'd be like, hey guys, if you had come out to the polls back last time, I would have won. So why don't you just come out to the polls and this time I'll win? That's probably the best argument she has. That's a good point.
That and saying, hey, you were willing to vote for Biden. If you're willing to vote for Biden, you got to vote for me.
Yeah.
I can work 8 hours. I can work 8 hours a day, not just 4.
All right, should we move on? Let's get even more political here.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. Well, the Supreme Court on Monday ruled that former presidents are entitled to immunity from federal prosecution for official acts. This is obviously a big win for Trump in his legal cases, but while you might not be able to tell from the headlines, this immunity did not extend to what can be deemed as personal acts, since the Supreme Court rejected those claims. So Mauricio, since you play a lawyer on TV, some of the talking heads says this gives Trump a path to dictatorship. Biden said we don't need a king, we need a president. Some of them are saying that SEAL Team 6, if Trump wins, SEAL Team 6 is going to go assassinate Biden for retribution. So is there any truth to any of this, Mauricio, or is this kind of just a little bit overblown?
This is a tough one, man. I'm a good ways into my Pisco with 40% alcohol on this thing. It's a beautiful drink. And to wrap it up after an hour of this, to talk about constitutional law, man, it's a tough one, but I'm up to the challenge. There's a reason they tell you that I'm one of the few lawyers that actually speaks English. And I'm going to break it down to you in 3 simple steps. No, that's not true, but I'm going to just lay it out for you. Here's what I'm doing. I'm going to tell you what the facts are. I'm going to tell you what the allegations are. I'm going to tell you what the court ruled. I'm going to give you like the sort of a little bit of the constitutional thing. Look, as you guys may or may not remember, the grand jury indicted former President Bush on 4 counts back in whenever it was, after basically he lost the election. And let's go through those 4 counts real quick. They accused him of conspiracy to defraud the United States, which is a charge that brought because he was basically accused of trying to overthrow or overturn the election through some, spreading false claims and, pressuring officials to change all that stuff. That was one of the counts that they alleged.
By the way, for the guy that does such a good job of speaking English, you should get your presidents right. You said Bush. I think you meant Trump.
Did I say Bush?
You did.
Did I really? Can we roll the tape? Can we do a replay?
Wishful thinking. I think a lot of people wish that we still had Bush after all this.
I don't know where I want to roll. I want to watch the replay because I don't remember saying that, but that could be the Pisco speaking. But yeah, former President Trump. Number 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. And that had to do with disrupting the election back in January 6th, 2011. As you guys remember, he had all those speeches and everybody stormed the Capitol. And basically that was when they were certifying the election results. And so that was the allegation about a conspiracy to obstruct that. Then the third charge was actually obstruction of the actual act of obstructing that official proceeding. And then there was a charge of conspiracy against the violation of the civil rights of the United States people, which was the prohibiting us or preventing us from exercising our constitutional rights, our civil rights of actually voting. Because if you're trying to overturn that, it interferes with my thing. So Trump moved to dismiss those charges on the grounds of, hey, I have presidential immunity. I can do whatever the hell I want. This was all during when I was presidency, so you should dismiss it. The district court, you should dismiss this case because all of these acts that you're alleging that I did happened when I was actually president and doing some official acts. And so screw you, this should be dismissed. The district court, of course, denied Trump's motion to dismiss. And so it was appealed to the Supreme Court, where they actually noted that this was the first time in the nation's history. AJ, how long have we been around in the United States? How many?
Like at least 50 years.
50 years minimum that we've been around. This is the first time that this issue has ever come up, that we've had this problem. And essentially what the Supreme Court said, and I'll just break it down to you in really, really simple terms, is that there's always been this immunity for civil claims, right? So if you're president and somebody tries to sue you civilly, you have absolute immunity against civil claims. The question was, do you have sort of immunity to criminal claims? And what the Supreme Court basically said is like, look, if you are exercising core presidential powers, like that's literally enumerated in the Constitution under the executive powers, Article 2, which enumerates executive powers, you have absolute immunity. However, if it's outside of that realm, meaning you're doing presidential acts, but it's not part of that core, just kind of general, then you have what's called presumptive immunity, meaning you assume that the guy has immunity, but you can rebut that presumption, meaning the burden of proof will shift to the other person to say, you've got to prove to me that I did not have immunity because I'm going to be presumed that I have immunity. And that's basically for anything outside of that. And then the third thing was, hey, anything that you did that wasn't official, like personal acts or, stuff that's unofficial, then you have zero immunity. So they basically broke it down in these three things. And the Supreme Court essentially said, which is contrary to what by the way, I pulled the freaking Supreme Court, this is you want to get the facts, you come to Drunk Real Estate. You don't go watch, MSNBC or Fox News, because I actually read the 116-page Supreme Court opinion. And what the essentially says is, hey, those are the standards. Like if you've got, core presidential function, you get absolute immunity, no questions asked, you're good. Anything below that, meaning official acts, but not quite core, then you have presumptive immunity. And then anything else, personal, anything outside of that, you have zero immunity. But the question then is like all of these acts that we talked about, all these conversations that he had with the vice president, all these speeches he made to the crowds, all the acts that they are accusing him of, are those official acts or are they not official acts? And nobody's gone through that exercise. So basically the Supreme Court sent it back to the lower courts that you guys figure this out and tell me whether these acts are official or not official so that we can determine whether he's got immunity or not. So the issue really is what constitutes an official act, all these things that he did. That's what the Supreme Court said. We don't know the answer to, but to the extent he was doing it from an official capacity, then he has presumptive immunity. Remember, like the easiest way for me to kind of understand the presumptive, when you're accused of a crime in the United States, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. So everybody assumes you're innocent and they've got to prove that you did it otherwise. Just imagine that you switched that and said, no. And a lot of countries are this way, by the way. A lot of countries, you're assumed guilty until you prove that you're innocent. And that's what the switch is right here. So now it's going down back to the lower courts. And it's assumed that President Trump did have immunity, but there is a chance for them to now argue that, hey, the specific circumstances, they were outside of the core or they're outside of their official acts, and so that he should not get immunity. But because that's going to take a while to go back down to district court, it's going to be after the election. Whatever decision the district court's going to make is probably going to happen sometime next year because the judicial system is really slow. So that's where we're at. Basically, we're not going to get a decision by the end of the year before the election. And so for now, at least on the immunity side, he's good. Now, this doesn't just apply to Trump. It applies to everyone. It applies to all, well, prior presidents, of course, but any future president will enjoy these sort of 3 categories of immunity moving forward. So that's really what it boiled down to. And it'll be, I don't know, the interesting part is by the time they get to it, even if they do claim that he did it outside of the thing, while he's a sitting president, they're not going to be able to do anything. Even if you're accused of some heinous crime while you're sitting president, they're going to have to wait, and they're going to be staying that proceeding until after he's done. So even if they came back and said, no, you definitely can be tried for these crimes, it'll be stayed. And it's like, okay, cool. You could be charged for these crimes, but we're going to wait until you're out of office in 2020. What's the number? 2029, 30, whatever the number is. And then we'll deal with the prosecution. But while he's a sitting president, he will not be able to be prosecuted for anything, let alone anything that's been doing here.
So the question floating around right now, though, is could Biden, who's the president right now, the commander-in-chief of the Army, order SEAL Team 6 to go and take out Donald Trump, and he would be immune to prosecution and basically above the law?
No, the Supreme Court specifically said that the U.S. president is not above the law, and even specifically for acts that he actually ends up getting impeached. So let's assume he does that, and then Congress impeaches him. He's not going to have immunity for it.
They did not say that in that ruling. They absolutely didn't say that. They said that he can get impeached, but they can't. That impeachment has no impact on whether he gets prosecuted criminally.
Am I going to have to go look at the 116 pages and find the exact?
I read most of it.
So I took away the same thing that Jay did. That basically, I guess the way I read it is that, like, yes, it doesn't have them like people are talking about. Okay, this is going to become a democracy is dead. We're dictators. We're going to have all these different things. But it's not like there aren't other ways to get rid of a president if he's an asshole. Like if Biden went and did that, sure, under this ruling, he would hypothetically have some immunity for ordering an assassination of a political rival. But then we would get into, as Mauricio said, we have to get into, okay, what's an official act and what's not an official act. That would be a very hot topic.
I think that's the issue. Like when you get impeached, it's almost by definition you're outside of your scope of what you did, because otherwise, why would you be impeached? Like the only reason you would be impeached is because you did something that was outside of your authority. So by definition, your act was outside of the authority, which means you've got the impeachment.
What I was saying is worst case scenario, like a president could do one act that was deemed crazy and Mad King like, and they still have other ways to get rid of them.
Who would stop him from doing the next act?
They would 25th Amendment, like
who
on the spot.
Who would 25th Amendment?
The vice president and the speaker and whoever. What all the people have to go?
What if the vice president and the speaker were all jailed?
Why are you throwing out this like a crazy hypothetical?
I didn't. So I didn't say this. So Sonia Sotomayor, one of the liberal justices, pointed out that there's a slippery slope here, and the fact that if you give the president immunity, the president can essentially stop anybody who wants to help him avoid that immunity by doing additional acts. At the end of the day, there's only one person who determines, or one group of people who determines if something's an official or unofficial act. It bypasses the legislature, bypasses Congress, and it goes to the courts. And if the president doesn't like what the court decides, he appeals it. If he doesn't like what that court decides, he appeals it.
There's still methods of getting rid of him, though. Like if he goes and says, "Hey, SEAL Team 6, assassinate Donald Trump," they could go do it. But the moment that like the rest of the political sphere gets rid of him, he's gone. Like they're gonna 25th Amendment him.
Congress, Senate, they'll impeach him. They'll charge him. They'll 25th Amendment. We have checks and balances. This immunity.
What's stopping him from saying, "Hey, they're trying to overthrow me as president. They're trying to start an insurrection. That's again, I have presidential responsibility to stop an insurrection. I'm going to jail them all."
Well, he'd be shouting at the wind because he'd already be gone because everyone else in office would have already 25th Amendment him and kicked him out.
It takes time to actually draw up articles of impeachment and then vote on them.
Jay, if they wanted to, they could have it done in hours.
Yeah.
Great. And as president, if he wanted to, he could have them jailed in minutes.
But there's no, just to be clear, I want to be clear though, there's no absolute immunity according to the Supreme Court. So that scenario, it would not give him immunity. There's no absolute immunity for doing
that's
that.
up to the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, that would be up to the Supreme Court.
Jay, I feel like you're just one of these talking heads on one of these like media stations now, where you're just looking for the most extreme example of possibly happening. How about we just don't elect someone who is shit crazy?
I'm literally giving you an example from the dissent written by another Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, no, that's a fair. No, I like it. You do. Yeah, you know, I'm with Jay. You do kind of extreme examples to show the point. I'm good with that. I'm just saying, if you did something like that, then you, first of all, you do not have, that would not be part of your core. Let me just be clear. Assassinating your political opponents and the VP are not part of your core presidential function according to Article 2 of the Constitution. So that falls outside of those things. And so the argument, according to the majority binding opinion, is that those would not constitute absolute immunity. It may give you presumptive immunity, but you would then just come back and say, wait a minute, here's my presumption, here's my rebuttal to that. And I'm pretty confident that would not result in.
Let me ask you a question, Mauricio, as the attorney here. What if, and hypothetical, let's say Biden had Trump assassinated. Everybody's assuming Trump's going to be the bad guy here and do all these things. But let's say Biden has Trump assassinated before the election. And he says, I felt like Trump was a threat to national security. He committed insurrection, all these things. And I felt that as commander in chief, I was responsible for ensuring the protection of our democracy.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Let me just point something out. There was another part of the majority opinion that John Roberts wrote that said, if courts consider what is an official versus an unofficial act, they cannot take motive into account.
Okay.
So they can't say Biden assassinated Trump because he wanted to win the election or he wanted to keep power. They cannot take motive into account.
Jay, you're assuming there's no chain of command, though. You're assuming that like Biden's just going to order SEAL Team 6, and he's just going to knock on SEAL Team 6's door and tell them immediately. It has to go through a chain of command, and no one other than the president has immunity. So you're assuming that everyone below him is so loyal to the president that they're going to go to jail because whatever act they're.
No, all I'm assuming is that there might be one person.
You need more than one, though, to do something like that. It goes through.
Again, this was in the dissent written by Sonia Sotomayor. So if you want to argue, that's fine. You can argue with me, but you have to come up with an argument that would actually discredit a Supreme Court justice who said these things.
We're not discrediting it here. She didn't talk about all of these other cases. She just threw it out as a possibility of where this could lead. She didn't specify. It's not like she gave a whole 50-page going through every single thing. Like it's just her opinion of where this could lead. And I've seen other legal scholars who are all constitutional lawyers going through this as well, and I read their opinions. And depending on whether they're Democrat or Republican, they all have different opinions. But like what I read is that in order for this to go through, you would basically have to have people around you willing to go to jail for you. Like you would order it and people would have to just blindly follow your order, knowing they're going to go to jail and knowing that what they're doing is illegal because they don't have immunity.
Well, they can get pardoned, but they can get pardoned.
They could get pardoned. And again, I'm not a military expert, but I'm pretty sure they're very strict on the chain of command. Like you don't get to question your authority. If somebody comes in from a commanding officer to tell you to go jump over a fence, you jump over a fence. You don't get to question their authority.
Let's take another example then. Let's take another example that's indisputable. So let's say somebody, a very wealthy person, let's say Steve Bannon, who just got thrown in jail yesterday, went to Biden and for contempt of Congress. Let's say he went to Biden and said, I'll give you $1 million if you pardon me. Literally, I will bribe you to pardon me.
Well, you're bringing in a separate Supreme Court issue. As long as he pays him after, it's fine.
No, it literally this Supreme Court, because pardon power is part of Article 2 of the Constitution, and any constitutional powers have absolute immunity. So literally this ruling legalized taking bribes for pardons. Literally.
I'm not debating that.
Yeah. Doesn't mean that he can't be impeached.
Is it crazy that outrageous? Have you ever looked up what the net worth of presidents are going into getting elected as president versus what they are after?
Wait, did
I
you
don't
guys
think we have to worry about presidents getting
wait.
bribed
Now
for $1 million.
you're busting out my buddy. Let's give a shout out to Mikey Taylor. And he did. Is that the one you guys watched? He did a nice little.
Yeah, I watched that on.
Mikey Taylor. If you're not following him, check him out. He did a whole thing of what the net worth of his incoming presidents and outgoing presidents, and it was pretty staggering. In fact, Trump lost like $1 billion being president.
As the only president who lost money.
Does that count the $2 billion from Saudi Arabia that Jared got?
Man, conspiracy theorist Jay out today.
No, nobody. It's not conspiracy theory.
Is this separate from the Hunter Biden Ukraine money, or is that the same part of the same?
I'm not making.
He's got all MSNBC on us.
That's my point. That's my point. They're all doing it, and they shouldn't be, and we just legalized it. That's the problem. We're all complaining that they're doing this that they shouldn't be, and we legalized it.
Let me bring it back. So Jay brings up some, and of course, when a Supreme Court justice brings it up, those are legitimate. I won't give Jay that much credit. He's just plagiarizing the Supreme Court justices. But yes, part of the core constitutional powers do include commander-in-chief activities, which include the national defense. So if you make the argument, hey, this is in the national defense, I had to stop this because there was a coup. Kamala Harris was about to overthrow the government, and we couldn't have that. So I made an executive decision to put her in jail or to shoot her because otherwise, cool. Pardon powers are part of Article 2. Those are powers core. So same thing. So these are all legitimate. Veto powers, the same thing. Appointment powers, pardon powers, treating powers. I don't know about how the State of the Union address would come into that. But that's how they picked it. They looked at all the core. They basically picked all the core constitutional powers of Article 2 and said, hey, let's come up with the most hardcore, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take a principle and do a mind experiment, a thought experiment of the extreme, and then see if it still holds up. And so those are two examples of
well, what's the extreme other side though? Like a president isn't immune for exercising his constitution powers. So like if somebody does something as their president and a something foreign, let's keep with the assassination. They go and they kill somebody if a foreign power is currently the enemy. Well, the next president gets in and he decides, hey, that was my buddy. And then all of a sudden decides to charge him with it because it's not covered under his constitutional powers. So like,
it's actually illegal for a president to assassinate somebody.
Yeah, it is. You can kill whoever you want.
So, well, hold on, but you have legitimate cases. Kyle's right. He assassinates people all the time.
What are you talking about? We did like you talk like the war room trying to take out like all of these other like the terrorist organizations all the time. They sit in there trying to assassinate these guys.
Okay, so hold on, but there's actual legitimate things. Like let's say you have a candidate that's running against you and you really don't want him to win and you don't think you can win because you're going to be senile. So the courts all get together and they don't like him either. And so they are going to bring laws together and they're going to change laws. And then they're going to bring charges to stop presidents and your political opponents from running. So now this is hard to imagine that would ever happen and that courts would ever do anything like that. Or as Chris Cuomo said, there's no way that New York has ever not only done this, would ever done this. It is a political 100%. Chris Cuomo said that it was a political driven motive. The point being is we're seeing today our courts who were openly do things they've never done before to stop a political candidate. That is a real danger. And I think if you don't see that as a Pandora's box that we're opening up here, that is wild because all presidents go back and look at all the things that they have done that are in that gray area. You will never have a president ever that will never not have charges be brought against them because you want to stop them. They'll go for 4 years. They'll run for re-election. Let's go after them. And you're going to have one state do it.
That's ridiculous. We've had 45 presidents. How many have had charges against them?
Exactly. This is the first time that anyone's ever tried to do it because they hated him so bad. But now we've opened up the Pandora's box because prior to this, that would have been unheard of.
So wait a second. So you're saying there's a risk in the future that presidents of the United States could get charged for crimes they committed, and that's a problem.
I'm saying that you will go after political opponents.
Great. If they committed a crime, should you go after a political opponent? Should you go after somebody who committed a crime?
Yeah, but Jay, like, what's a crime though? That's what I'm saying. Is like, one of my biggest issues with this is that Trump, like, should he have been charged with some of these things with the insurrection January 6th? I believe absolutely. But should he have been charged with some of these other things, like the whole assets, the real estate assets for applying for loans and stuff when there was no parties who were harmed in it? Like, no. So the law is it depends on who the judge is. The judge is, if the judge is a Democrat or the judge is a Republican.
So should we be allowed to charge you with a crime? Isn't that the same issue?
Why are we bringing this up now? The point is, when he's a sitting president, are you allowed to charge him with things that could fall under his act as a sitting president? Like that's what the question is. And what AJ is trying to bring up is that the problem is that, good or bad, I guess you think it's good, Jay, but that all of a sudden it's now the courts have become a weapon of like playing this out. Like you say, okay, what previous president has been charged with crime? What previous president couldn't get, like Hunter Biden off on his charges? Like those would have just gone away. It's like previously they just didn't do it. It was kind of just like everyone was in the boys club. All politicians, red or blue, were in the boys club. They took care of each other. It was kind of just a even playing field, and everybody loved ELE. Everyone loves everyone. Well, now Trump has come in, and like some people hate him, some people love him, and so now they're weaponizing whatever they can, and it's become, now we have to have these discussions. Now we have to have this Supreme Court ruling something that shouldn't have to have been ruled on.
Yeah, like the big difference. I will say that the big difference is that in the past, the good old boys club, we didn't have. I can't under or overstate the impact on that social media has on all this stuff. Like in the old days, you just didn't know anything. Like something happened, and you just didn't know. Like nobody would able. But now with the abundance of information is free flowing. Everybody can get all the information they want. There's just no way you can get away with some of this stuff. Like even if you do a favor of a parking ticket, somebody's going to find out because somebody works at the ticket office and they're going to post it on social media and somebody's going to pick it. Like that whole thing has changed. It's not necessarily Trump or Obama or Bush. It's the social media world that we live in where everybody now has access to all of this information, which has changed everything. I mean, just look at the medical, let's digress just to do, like, there's just like in the medical field, right? Before it's like, you go to your doctor and it's like, oh, whatever the doctor said, I don't know, like whatever. Now it's like Dr. Google runs the world. Like if you have a headache, you're like, oh, what's causing my headache? And everybody has access to all this information. And it's the same thing with the presidential candidates. It's like that's the big difference now is you just can't get away with it.
Let me leave it at this. This is the last thing I'm going to say on this. We have a Supreme Court who, for the last several years, has claimed that they are originalists. They're textualists. And what that means is they try and put themselves in the minds of the framers, their original founding fathers, and they try to interpret the Constitution in the way that was intended by our founding fathers. Well, our founding fathers were very, very clear at the Constitutional Convention that no person, including the President of the United States, is above the law. Nowhere in the Constitution is the idea of immunity for presidents even discussed. It does discuss immunity for members of Congress, by the way. So it's not like they just ignored or forgot or didn't think about this idea of immunity. They were thinking about immunity, but they specifically decided the President of the United States doesn't get any immunity from a constitutional perspective. And at the Constitutional Convention, James Wilson specifically said, let it be known that we believe that nobody, including the President of the United States, is above the law. This court has basically decided that they are going against the intention of the founding fathers, and they're not being textualists. They're not being originalists in this. And they're making an argument that seems to be very convenient for a particular person in this case. And nobody on the court addressed this. Nobody on the court made an argument for how this could be considered an originalist or a textualist argument.
So you would argue that the president doesn't deserve any kind of immunity whatsoever to anything?
I would argue that was the intention of the people that wrote the U.S. Constitution.
I'm asking you though, as a person, you would argue then that the president doesn't deserve immunity for anything?
Nobody in this country deserves immunity for anything. If you break the law, I don't care if you're the president.
Even if a president does something under his term that he believed at the time was right, and the people around him agreed with it, but he was the one who made the action, and then the next person who comes in believes that was the wrong decision and it could be deemed illegal because it was, military, or it was, something out of his power, then that next president could charge the previous president for that act.
No, that next president cannot charge anybody. That's not the way the legal system works in our country.
Okay, he can order the Justice Department.
Prosecutor can charge.
Right, and he can order so just like Trump, when he gets in office, he can order these cases against him dropped.
He shouldn't be able to.
He can. That hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. That's nothing new here.
He's in charge of the Department of Justice.
But they're not obligated to listen to him.
Yes, they are. No,
they're not.
Am I missing something? Like,
Donald Trump could not tell his attorney general.
All everyone's talking about is when Trump gets in office, it's a big deal because this is now pushed past November, and he's basically going to get the Department of Justice to be able to drop it. But you're trying to say he can't do that
because he's going to have a DA that's going to be willing to do it, but he can't force the DA to.
Okay, well, either way, he's same thing. So then, you can't argue both sides. So the point is that the next administration could come in, put a DA in that they're willing to do it, and then charge a previous president if they don't have any immunity.
Absolutely. And Joe Biden.
And that's not just as bad as what you're saying right now, these hypotheticals of SEAL Team 6 assassinating people and everyone below just saying yes and them willing to go to jail and all these things. Like,
is it just as bad? Yes, but it's not codified in law. That's the thing. We have now codified in law this idea that a president is not subjected to the same laws as everybody else.
But they haven't codified what distinction is an official act. So that is still to be determined in lower courts. It's going to go back to lower courts, and it's not absolute in that case.
And it's not. And again, I want to make sure there's a distinction between there's official acts and non-official acts. So that's the first distinction, right? So clearly, if it's not an official act, if it's personal, no immunity. But even within official acts, the question is, to Jay's point, is it a core presidential function, pardons, commander-in-chief, that kind of stuff? Because that's absolute immunity versus all the other official acts, which is not absolute immunity. It's presumptive immunity, which means the burden will shift to the other side to prove that, hey, you don't deserve this immunity, president, because of XYZ. It's now your burden to prove it. So we do have to, there are three categories. It's not just official acts and no official acts. It's non-official acts for sure, zero immunity. So that's why all these other things going on is not going to get. But even in official acts, is it a core function, commander-in-chief, pardons, like all that stuff, or is it everything else?
And a number of constitutional attorneys have brought up the fact that Roberts was very clear, and the decision was very clear, that motive cannot be taken into account. So as long as the president says, I did this because I felt it was in the best interest of national security, even if 2 weeks earlier he got up and he said, I'm going to assassinate Biden so I win. Motive cannot be taken.
But I think motive is different from facts. Like if you have a jury that says, hey, I don't believe that's true, and the judge says, like, I don't believe that's true, that's different from motive. So you still have the presumption of immunity, but then somebody else can come back and say, yeah, I hear you. You have a presumption, but that's bullshit because.
But you can't use motive. But you can't even use motive. So you can't go to the attorney general and say, "Hey, did Trump come to you and have a discussion about why he wanted you to drop these charges?" You can't have that. That can't be introduced as evidence.
Correct. But a trier of fact, which in this case would be judges, they could just listen to the facts and say, you know what, I just don't believe you. I know you say that you did this because of XYZ, but I just don't believe you, and so I'm going to rule that this was not.
At the end of the day, every case, every decision is going to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to decide if it was an official or unofficial act. And if we of course.
No, the president figures out what the law is. They actually remanded that back to the district court and said, hey, this is the rule: absolute immunity, presumptive immunity, no immunity. District court, you didn't even address this. You go back and you tell me whether these were what they don't. The appellate process, which is what the Supreme Court, they don't deal with facts. The trier of fact is at the lower court. So whether a fact is A or B is different. So they have remanded it back to the district court to say, hey, which one of these acts was official, non-official? Those are determinants of facts, and that's not something that you would then question because you're only questioning issues of law, meaning if this fact was true, would you be able to, would you be in violation of some rule, or would you get immunity if this was true? So there's a difference between trier of fact and an appellate. Like when you appeal something, if a jury determines that you ran the red light, you can appeal the fact that they ran the red light. You can appeal the fact that, hey, even if I ran the red light, that doesn't constitute this, or hey, you gave the jury instructions the wrong instruction, you shouldn't have done. But you can't dispute the trier of fact that said you ran the red light.
I guess my whole point with it is that, yes, it's like making this ruling could have some extreme case issues, but not having any presidential immunity could have some equal extreme case issues as well. So it's not as cut and dry as everyone who,
For sure. And they did mention that's the main reason for it. There's a chilling effect.
Go look at all the laws. Go look at all the laws that Obama broke. So if you actually go look up, there's a whole host of attorneys.
Great. So, and you're okay with that? Are you okay?
Because he was acting in his best interest of what the country was.
I've been listening for 10 years to Trump threaten to have his attorney general come after Obama for assassinating U.S. citizen. Do it.
He can't because the president has immunity. There you go.
Well, he didn't until 2 days ago. But
it could be interpreted. It was up for interpretation. It just wasn't ruled on by the Supreme Court. There's always.
But my point is, why not? What is wrong with putting a president in front of a jury and letting a jury decide on the facts?
Because there's a chilling effect of when you're trying to make that really important decision as a president. You don't want to be like, shit, if I do this, will I get prosecuted?
And Jay, it's not juries. You're saying it's like it's a jury of 12 equally picked people. No, these are judges. Like in Trump's trial, it was a judge, and it was a Democrat judge. Like that's when you're in politics, that's just the nature of it. Just like the reason that these things are happening is because you have 6 Republican judges on the Supreme Court.
But the argument is you don't want the president to be making a massive core presidential decision. Should I, for national defense and commander in chief, make a decision and be like, shit, I'd like to make this decision, but fuck, I might get prosecuted by it in the future. Maybe I shouldn't bomb Iran because shit, there might be whatever. And now there's a chilling effect on that decision. That's what they're trying to avoid.
Decisions we don't have laws for.
Then change the Constitution.
But that's your interpretation. And obviously 6 Supreme Court judges interpret it differently. You can't just act like you're the authority on what the Constitution said.
Well, no, the framers were very clear that the president is not.
There were 6 Supreme Court judges who disagreed with you.
The framers thought black people were property, Jay. They also thought that.
Right. And you know what? The only way that was overturned was an amendment to the Constitution. If you disagree with the Constitution, you pass an amendment.
The Constitution is up for interpretation.
100%. If you believe that the president should not have this kind of immunity, then yes, go ahead and change the Constitution, because that's basically in the Constitution in Article 2. So
my point is, yes, this court did decide that they believe that. My point is, I believe that was a political decision because
you believe. That's the point. You're acting like this is against the Constitution, but that's your opinion. It's only your opinion.
This is hypocrisy on the part of the court, who said that they were textualists, who said that they want to do what the framers intended, and it was very clear.
In your opinion. Your opinion.
No, not in my opinion.
Okay.
They are not being. They would say they're not being textualist here. This is hypocrisy.
You can't just be black and white on every single issue as a Supreme Court judge. Like you just can't.
This Supreme Court has made it clear that in many cases it has been, because that is what the framers intended.
Okay, and it doesn't mean that every single issue that seems to, in your opinion, stray away from that is all of a sudden they're like lying to you. Like they see so many issues all the time.
It's hypocrisy when you say this is the way we're going to rule, and then you make a ruling that doesn't follow that trend. That's hypocrisy.
But if they believe that it is, it's not hypocrisy to them. That's the point here. If they believe we're actually following through with the intent of the law, and this is why we made this decision, because we believe this was the intent and this was the purpose. It was to make it so we can't just go.
Jay, how can you not say it's a matter of opinion when we're talking about the founding fathers? How can anybody know what they intended? Like,
what are you talking? The founding fathers actually said what they intended.
Okay, again, but they didn't foresee this case coming up where if someone would like arguably go after a previous president because they were political rivals. Like it's like that's
right. The
what's being claimed
Constitution
right
was
now.
not written. The Constitution wasn't written with one particular case in mind. And again,
Exactly.
our framers did address the idea of immunity. They addressed the idea of immunity for the president. They decided not to give him immunity, and they even said specifically that no person, including the president, is above the law. The president is not a king. They said that. They made that decision.
Who said that? One of the founding fathers said that. It's not in the Constitution.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but again, in this particular case, they did not hold that Trump specifically had absolute immunity. He had presumptive immunity, meaning they're giving him the presumption of immunity, but that immunity, the lower court, the lower court can come down and say, you know what? These acts that we are alleged, all these conspiracy to overturn the election, those were not core constitutional powers. These were just, within the thing. So you don't get absolute immunity. So you could argue that he would be charged with those. It's possible they will get charged because it's not absolute immunity.
Imagine presidents going after previous presidents for war crimes. Like there needs to be some sort of immunity for presidents making acts. Like, okay, Jay, could they have been a little bit more narrow and not given a kind of just an open-ended? Yes, of course they could have been, and they should have. And I think actually one of them, wasn't it Comey Barrett? When she agreed, but then she actually said okay, but this little part, I don't agree with it. They could have done that. Yes. Should they have done that? In my opinion, yes. But at the same time, I do believe that the president needs some sort of protection against people coming after them later for decisions that they made for what they thought was best interest of the country. I don't want a president thinking in the back of their mind, oh, this might be illegal later.
I understand that that's what you believe. That is not what our founding fathers believed based on what they said and how they wrote the Constitution.
All right, let's retroactively charge all the presidents before slavery. I don't you just
the law was changed. If a president had slaves today, they would be charged. They're breaking the law. They wouldn't be if they claimed it was an official act. That's the problem. That is the problem.
They would because that is not owning slaves is not a core constitutional power. It's not part of the core constitutional power.
Not an official act. That's not how this works. They don't get blanket immunity and then they can do anything they want ever.
What if they said they were doing it for the?
Let's go charge Bush with war crimes.
Great, fantastic.
Because it was found out after the act that he made the best decisions he could with the information that he had. It was found out after the act that he had bad information. Let's charge him because he was given bad information.
Well, wait a second. I mean, if I'm given bad information and I break the law, do I get charged or do I get?
You're not the president.
And that's the whole point. The president should not be above the law.
Oh my God. All right. I just fundamentally disagree with that.
The law provides special protections to the president. The president has special protection that you don't.
The military kills people all the time. Should we charge them all with murder? No, because there's protections for them.
Because they're not breaking the law. The law is actually...
Yes, they are. They're killing people. They're under orders from someone else, but they still kill people.
The law doesn't abide to presidents like it does us. They can speed. They can do all sorts of things that none of us.
No, they can't because they can't drive cars.
They can do and not do lots of things. Exactly. This proves my point. Here we go. So if we want to get into what they can do and we can't, the list is unfathomable. They're not like they're just walking around citizens. That is the law.
Doesn't sound like we're going to convince Jay. I don't know. I'm flabbergasted that you're holding so strong.
I really want to hear the top 10 for this episode because I'm just waiting to see.
So we're going to bring us back to the debates for the top 10, and I'm going to ask you where you thought the ratings, so the viewership of this previous debate, where that fell in historical debates. How what number you thought that fell on? Do you think it was number one?
Above average.
Average. There's been how many debates? 50
years. This one was above average, is what I'm saying.
Where do you think it falls in the top 10?
Oh, top 10? Is it in the top 10? Are you telling me it's in the top 10?
I'm not telling you it's in the top 10. I'm telling you where do you think it falls? In the top 10, outside the top 10, number 1, number 2, number 3, what?
As far as the most viewed?
Yes.
I'd say number 4.
Mauricio.
Does this include internet and social media versus
Yes.
yeah? Because of that, I'm going to say, yeah, top 5.
Jay?
I don't care. I'm angry. I'm annoyed.
Oh, grumpy Jay.
I'm grumpy.
Jay. Have a shot, Jay. Have a shot.
What was the question again?
Let's swig from the bottle, Jay. Come on.
Jay's opinion doesn't matter. He's wrong anyway.
My opinion doesn't matter.
So the answer is actually didn't make a list. It was the viewership across all networks, including internet, all of these. So CNN, it was televised, CNN, ABC, Fox. It was all these networks. The total viewership was 51 million viewers.
Wait. Is this include YouTube and LinkedIn and internet? Because that's where everybody's watching.
Well, it includes all the official, like at the time of the debate, all the official ways to watch the
official ways,
debate.
Meaning just CNN and the broadcasting channels.
Well, if someone took clips and put them on YouTube, that obviously doesn't count.
No, of course not. No. But if I could watch it live on the internet, does that count?
Yes.
Okay.
Anywhere that was telecasting it, that counted.
You sure?
Well, that's what it said, and like it has a little footnote, like live. It says live plus same day viewing.
So if I watch CNN on my internet, does that count?
Yes, exactly. And so the reason they had to put a footnote, because figures that were prior to 2006 are only live, because prior to 2006 they didn't have all these other things.
Perfect. That's what I figured. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like prior. Yeah.
So although this did not make the list, Trump did kind of crush the list. So the number one viewing of all time. What would your guess be? Anyone but Jay can answer.
The first televised debate, was that like Kennedy?
No. I was trying to preempt this. Clinton-Trump was the number one. It had 84 million views. And then actually the next number 2 was from 1980, was Carter-Reagan. Then number 3, bring it back. It's the original debate in 2020, September, Trump and Biden. And then that was 73 million. 71 million was the other Clinton and Trump debate in 2016. So apparently Trump was more divisive and brought out more people to watch debates back in 2016. And then we round this out with Bush, Clinton, and Perot, 69.9 million. Nice. Carter Ford, 69.7. Bush Dukakis, 67.3. And then Reagan, and I don't even know who this other guy is, Mondale.
Walter Mondale. Yeah, this is all rigged. The reason this is rigged is because if you think about like the John F. Kennedy debates, like that was like TV was new, it was black and white, like everybody's listening to it on the radio. So like people actually listened or watched it. So the same, that's why I was asking, like today, like back in the 80s and 90s, everybody watched just normal, like the major channels. Then you have cable, so that expanded, and now you have internet. So
well, you say that though, but the number 2 was from 1980. And then all of the ones after the top 5 were 1976, 1988, 1984. So they obviously got that viewership. But I do agree with you, because I remember reading a stat about the presidential debate with Nixon and Kennedy, and how it was such a big deal with the radio, because everyone who watched it on TV thought that Kennedy had won their debate, and everyone who listened to it on the radio thought Nixon had won it. So then that's when the whole thing about
you know why? Because Nixon refused to wear makeup and was sweating during the debate, and a lot of people who were watching.
I mean, AJ watches the debates in the metaverse, and nobody else. I mean, that's like a big thing. So in the future, you're gonna have to start measuring the metaverse of how you.
AJ's got one of those Apple headsets, and he was reaching out and trying to touch Trump in the middle and just pat him.
He's
on
like
the back.
literally front row seats to the debate.
Good job, Trump. He was trying to pat him on the back.
Smack him.
Okay. Keep along the president, since this is all we've been talking about. If you could let's start it with, if you could pick between Trump, Biden, and Bobby Kennedy to have dinner with right now, who would it be? AJ?
Kennedy.
Bobby Kennedy? All right. As long as we don't talk about vaccines. Mauricio?
I'm more interested in business than anything else. I would probably want to talk to Trump and pick his brain on real estate and business and building a multi-billion-dollar empire. Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
I just want to know about the assassination.
You think he knows?
I think so. That's why I want to talk to him.
Well, Trump said he would release it. Jay, what's your answer?
My kids.
Okay, let's move this on to any living or dead president, if you could pick to have dinner with any of them, who would it be? AJ.
Lincoln.
That's fair. Mauricio.
I'm gonna go with George Washington. I want to know what it was like back in the day.
Jay, you gonna answer this one either, or are you just gonna be
I would choose a dead president. I need the quiet.
George Washington is not a dead president, of course. He's alive and well. But yeah, which dead one?
He said any president alive or dead. So I want one of the dead ones, so I can have a nice quiet dinner to myself right now.
Wow, he gets so grumpy when people don't agree with him, eh? All right. My answer, I'm going to try and keep this a little humorous and lighthearted. My answer would be Lyndon B. Johnson. And the answer is Lyndon B. Johnson would regularly take out his dick in front of people whenever they were questioning him on something and say, this is why. Apparently he had a huge schlong on him. And there's multiple reports that he would just whip his dick out and use it as an example of why he got to make decisions.
And you cannot wait to have dinner with this guy so he could whip out his dick and show it to you and stick it in your face.
He just wants to see it.
Yeah, I just want to see him do it to someone else. I think it would be the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. So apparently this is a true story. He was in the middle of like that unpopular war at the time, obviously. And journalists often asked and pointed out, why were they involved in Vietnam? What were you doing? And there was one time he was in the middle of a group of reporters and they all reported this and he was frustrated and he literally just whipped his dick out and said, this is why. So
there's no internet. There's no TMZ in those days.
Yep. Back then the reporters didn't even have probably photography to take pictures of it. So yeah, that would be my answer. AJ, want to plug anything?
I'm just going to keep going with the book. Book's out, rocking it, still bestseller. So yeah, go check it out. Oh, look at that. Growing Wealth and Self-Storage 2.0. Mauricio rocking it.
2.0, 2 times more information and 3 times more pages. Mauricio,
Right.
What do you got, buddy?
Follow me on YouTube, Mauricio Rauld, where you can absolutely see every single episode of Drunk Real Estate, but also another 200-300. I forgot to track how many freaking videos I have on that YouTube. So give me a subscribe. Looking to build the YouTube channel under Mauricio Rauld.
All right. I'm going to plug my wife, Badass Investor, at Badass Investor on Instagram, at Badass Investor on YouTube. What are you guys laughing about? Jay didn't participate in the last 2 segments, so why would he participate in this one? And that's that. Want to say hi to my dog? My dog's here. Come on, buddy. I'd like to plug my dog. My dog. Say hi to everybody. He's taking Jay's plug. He also wants to plug Badass Investor. All right. Well, I don't know about you guys. My drink's been gone for a while. I'm sweating my balls off. So I want to get out of here. But I know at least me, AJ, and Mauricio will be back. Jay might quit in between. So for you guys, I will see you next Tuesday.
Love you guys.